friends. Welcome to episode 244 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
I'm trying to pour tea and not pour it all over the table.
Yeah, please don't.
I'm doing the best I can.
It's
okay?
very hot. You're amazing. What a time to be alive here, folks. Rob got all the tea in the cup. Almost all the tea in the cup.
Almost.
Okay.
I'm doing the best I can. That's what
you
I'm
are.
doing.
You're doing amazing, sweetie, and we're all watching.
We're all watching.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So no, actually, I think we're doing all right. We're coming off of this is the first week of work back for me. I know you kind of had to work over the vacation.
I had a few days that I had to put in. So.
But no, it's been a little weird. I came back to it. It was a massive pile of work again.
Yeah.
Asked my boss.
I don't know if it's just us, but I feel like that maybe there's something going on out there where like you're not allowed to get all your work done or get the work done that you expected to get done. It's just like, no, something's going to interrupt you. You thought you were going to do something, but this other thing's going to interrupt you. I mean, you're still working,
yeah,
but you're just not doing the thing that you expected.
That was definitely today.
Yeah,
full day of work, got nothing accomplished.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt.
And but we got what, Nova Praxis coming up this weekend.
We do.
So that's gonna be pretty cool.
Down one player. That's okay. It happens.
Yeah, down one player. But it's interestingly the player whose character's head my character lives in.
That should be hilarious. However, it's decided that works out.
Well, the good news is I think we've got that ship that we salvaged.
Which you could set up like a makeshift apartment.
I'm gonna upload myself to the ship's computer and just move in there. You know.
Yep.
And just be the onboard ship's AI. I'm gonna be Cortana. It's gonna be amazing.
Wait a second, that didn't work out for Cortana.
It worked out for Cortana in, like, the first game.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Until the Pillar of Autumn got shot out of the sky in the first 20 minutes.
That's why I was saying it really didn't work out for...
But then she moved into Master Chief's head and everything was copacetic for, like, a game or two.
Yeah.
Then I think she went rampant. But, you know... I don't know. I'm not really up on my Halo lore.
That's all fair.
I'm up on my Marathon lore, though, and I know all about those AI going rampant, and it's still Bungie, so...
Still Bungie.
But yeah, no, we're gonna have a lot of fun with Nova Praxis. It'd be good to see the gang again.
Yeah, definitely. And, happy 2024.
Yeah.
We stepped into this new year, and it's slow. Like, it's kind of just a ginger walk.
It doesn't feel like a new year yet to me.
No.
Like, I was kind of, I think we all kind of go into it expecting a big transformation. It's like, oh, this isn't 2023 anymore. This is 2024.
No, it still feels like 2023. We never left it.
It's still like last week, you know.
Everything's still clawing on us.
Yep.
But we have a show topic.
Yeah.
We do.
Ish.
No, it's definitely one.
It's definitely
this one was gifted to us by one of our contributors.
Yes.
As we said last show. Which you can do as well if you join us on our Discord and also are part of our Patreon. We love suggestions. We really, really do, because it helps us kind of stay better in contact with the community and what's going on beyond our tables.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought this was very fitting. Like we've gone over this topic on a couple different shows, but really what was being discussed here was the need to understand group harmony and how do DMs help with it.
Right. I think we've talked about like the different styles of players and stuff like that. And we've talked a little bit about player etiquette and stuff like that. But we've never really talked about like how to keep the table together.
Yeah.
And how do you as the storyteller, as the proverbial eye of that storm, how do you handle all the various people at your table and keep one big cohesive group, keep everybody happy, keep everybody involved?
Yeah, I think keeping everyone happy is an impossibility. Don't even try that. But more along the lines of what are you obligated to do?
Right.
You know, what's expected, of a good storyteller. Because there's a lot of, like, false beliefs, I think, from people who see stuff like... Critical Role and see how well they all click together, and just assumes that like, hey, that's how all games need to run.
Right.
Matt doesn't have to do anything in those games. Those players just know how to play together. And like you watch other Let's Plays, and etiquette isn't a thing. Like, it's just assumed. Again, the DM isn't wrangling anyone. There's no side discussion about, like, hey, dude, like, that was not the right thing to do or anything like that. Nor is there any, like, we want to go do this thing, and everyone else is doing that.
Yeah,
Like, they're all professionals, and in that, it just seems to flow.
Yeah, and I think, it's on one hand it's good to have those things out there, and they're really good pieces of media, like you said, like Critical Role, Dimension 20, productions like that. But keeping in mind that those are professionals with a production crew.
Well, not only that, they're professionals in that they've always followed a script and flow together. Like, that's just, I mean, if you do that your entire, like, I assure you that if you got a bunch of even SNL people together, or, or any of the ad-lib stand-ups that are out there, they're all gonna play D&D just fine together.
Oh, yeah. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that they're there with kind of the single-minded purpose of making the production that they are, because that's where they come from, that's what they're trained in.
Whereas at our tables,
we're not.
We're definitely not. We're definitely not.
We're a bunch of people who are like, yeah, I can fit you in on Wednesdays between 7 and 9 for a quick D&D game. Sure.
But you don't know that person also likes to, I don't know, they want to be the explorer. They want to find every little thing. You start talking about a mountain, they want to go climb it. You talk about a certain, secret waterfall, they want to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus the person who just wants to literally fight everything.
Yeah.
Bar fights, wonderful. Goblins, got them. Is that a huge encampment of undead? We're going in.
So we actually had a big discussion previously about the different types of players there are in episode, get ready for this, 7. So you gotta go way back in our
go to the Wayback Machine.
Way back in our logs. We were still back with Podcast Detroit at that point.
Yeah. You'll hear a difference in that show.
Yeah, definitely hear a difference in the show. But we did talk about like some of the different player types and stuff like that. We've also talked about table etiquette and such like that before as well.
Episode 9.
Episode 9, yeah.
Episode 9.
But I think it's important to recognize, first off, that there are all sorts of different players out there. I mean, some are very story-focused. A lot of basically our players, we kind of share the same sort of group of players in our games.
We've cultivated them.
We're all more or less story-focused. Some of us are mechanical-focused. And that's, usually combat-focused, but not always. But there are people who like to engage with the games like games. There is a set of mechanics. I'm going to engage with your world through those mechanics and try to manipulate those mechanics to make the outcomes that I want.
Yeah, I will be the best wizard.
Game. Right.
Or in the case of something like, vampire, I am going to engage through whatever clan gives me the best abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sometimes power gaming, but sometimes it's just min-maxing what you want.
I'm not even ascribing a word to it, because I don't even want to get into calling it a pejorative. It's just people experience games differently. You've got some, like I said, that are puzzle focused. They're trying to they're not necessarily engaging with the game mechanics as much, but they're trying to figure out what it is the storyteller wants to happen so that they can quote-unquote win the scenario,
Yeah.
How do I play everything in a way that will come out to my advantage?
Yeah, what's the angles I can get on this?
Right.
There's, I think, the one that is interesting and often forgotten about is the one who is trying to help everyone else have a fun time.
Yes.
Leaning into their backgrounds, leaning into their stories, asking questions, trying to, push the other characters around them into lights.
The quintessential support character that when you ask them what they want to play in your game, they say, well, what does the group need?
Yeah.
That's the type of player we're talking about there. And then there are, some who really are just there to engage in their own power fantasy. And again, not as a pejorative.
No.
It's, I love feeling powerful. It's one of the big reasons why I'm on such a Monster Hunter kick right now, along with apparently half of everybody else in the gaming world. But, I love the power fantasy of, like, wielding a hammer the size of a washing machine and, slamming that into a fire-breathing T-Rex's skull and watching him stagger across a jungle,
Yeah.
Like, that's... I'm... Of course that feels great.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Games are meant to be fun. And it's a beautiful thing.
Great little bit of escapism, especially in our bleak world where sometimes, the game may be the only bit of light you get all week between work and family obligations and such like that.
Yeah.
Of
it's
course.
something you plan for.
Yeah.
Hobbies are meant to be that way, but that doesn't disclude the other person at the table, the storyteller.
Yeah, exactly. The storyteller is a player.
And their styles are just as different as the people at the table, right? They might run a mechanics-heavy game. Maybe they like the mechanics of the game. Maybe they really want to push it out there. Even games that aren't, in their own method, mechanics-heavy. Like, I like Fate's aspects. I think that's really cool. I've watched GMs just eat that stuff up. They love that piece to it. And, that's a mechanic of the game that they're very interested in. I loved 7th for Drama Dice. I thought it was one of the best mechanics that it had, only to discover it's now everywhere in some aspect, which is great. That's wonderful to see.
But we're playing Savage Worlds. It's basically Benny's, in a way. Yeah,
and I think in the same regard, we have the flip sides to some of the other pieces.
Sure.
You have DMs who are mechanics heavy for the sake of the story, right? Where they're going to lean into things like, I think Brindlewood Bay is a great example of that, where they're hovering through the mechanics to make the story come alive, almost on rails. But the thing is it's if you're running the game as it should be run, you're sticking to that guideline that they've give you to not make it on rails.
Yeah.
But again, that's a different aspect than somebody who really likes puzzles or situations or adventures. Like maybe they just want to make an episodic adventuring.
Yeah, sure.
Again, that's a completely different style.
As the kids on Tumblr say, they just want to put their blorbos in situations.
That's right. Right. All the blorbos at the table. And then of course, you've got your people who have grand stories, who love this world that they have built, the giant sandbox that is before everyone, and they want to talk about every aspect of it. Or even the people who just have, like, a cast.
Yeah.
Like, I have seen more people who enjoy building casts than worlds. And I think that's great.
Honestly, that's kind of me. You build complex situations in your things. I build very simple situations, but I put all the work you put in your situations into my NPCs.
Yep.
And so everybody involved in the basic situation is a living, breathing person. I love building casts like that.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you're effectively Shakespearean things up, where the situation will occur regardless of the setting.
Sure.
And that's a fantastic way of looking at things, So what's the complication there when things don't match? Is it a matter of the storyteller and the players? Is it player to player? Is it between players? Sometimes it can be everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be part of that. But either way, it's a form of conflict that produces grinding and or some straight up unfun.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is, it's one of those things. It's kind of like I kind of liken it to like problems in a relationship. If like somebody like leaves their clothes all over the floor, like doesn't wash the dishes or something like that. It can be like, okay, the first time it happens, you're like, okay, that's
unmanaged expectations.
Unmanaged expectations. We should work on this. But like if it goes unchecked, it can like breed resentment, and it starts conflating itself into like actual problems where you start yelling at the person over a dish in the sink.
Right, because it's meaning more to you than to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's one of these things where like if these, it can cause bigger problems, but we should talk about them and try to A, identify them before they become big problems, and B, what can you do then to work these issues out?
I always like examples for our people so that they can follow this. A simple one is maybe a few people at the table are really narrative focused. They want plot and story progression to continue. They want to feel that that their characters aren't worried about the numbers so much as they are worried about individuals or NPC stories within things.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody at that table is literally there to win.
They're the min-maxer that walked in and went, my character beats everything.
Right. They're trying to Mary Sue themselves through every situation that involves a conflict to the advantage, maybe of the group as a whole.
Well, again, I kind of don't. I want to stay away from the negative connotations here. I don't want to toss out words like Mary Sue and stuff like that, because this player could just be one of those players, like I said, that engages with a game through its mechanics. Okay, and the mechanics for them becomes a puzzle of like, okay, how do I fit them? It's fun for me to fit mechanic A with mechanic B and creates a combo of effects that is very good. You know, you see this a lot in video games. You know, like what's optimal.
Yeah. Oh God.
You know. And you know what's meta.
Yeah.
And
is this the goat?
It carries over into role playing games because they're systems of numbers, they're systems of mechanics.
Yeah.
It's fun for some people to just engage with those mechanics and try to like really get into them and use them in the best way. But what can happen with that then is you've got someone at the table then who is the most optimal player in the world and can do 173 points of damage to that red dragon that you put in for funsies. And now suddenly he has erased the threat from the table, and you're like, I wanted that to be a social encounter?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or they do the other piece of that, which is is that they don't want combat, but they literally are trying to win every social encounter. Doing the same thing. Again, it's just an encounter. It's just a mechanic for them. It's a way to win. And they're having fun with it because of the fact that they're not a person who engages narratively.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't understand it. Maybe they don't like that. Maybe that doesn't bring joy to them, right?
This does not spark joy.
So you have a lot of different ways, and we've definitely had the groups where it's, you know, narrative versus murder hobos. Whether that's the storyteller wanting narrative and the players being the murder hobos, or worse, you know, it's part and part, you know?
Yeah.
You've got a storyteller who's trying to decide, should the game be murder hobos or should the game be narrative, and you've got a split group.
Yeah.
You know? Or you have a storyteller who just wants a narrative and all the players are murder hobos.
I mean,
those are all things.
Sometimes you get the storyteller looking for one type of game, and literally all of it's not even conflict between the players. The players are all united. It's just different from what the storyteller had in mind, you know.
And I've read that so many times
yeah.
where it just the storyteller is unprepared for what the players' expectations were. So, I guess to me, we have to set some responsibilities on both sides, because the one thing that if I've learned anything in these 40 plus years of my life is that if you set expectations for someone else, whether it's the storyteller to the players or the player to the storyteller or player to player, where the other person hasn't consented to their responsibility and you understand, and there's an understanding there, that expectation can't be met, can't be achieved, can't even be accepted. At that point, you're just setting them up to fail, because it's a silent expectation, which isn't an expectation at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it's an expectation in your mind, but there's no way for them to fulfill it.
Right.
You know, well, every player would know this. No, they wouldn't.
It's like I was talking about earlier, you know, where if you don't address the problems in a relationship, suddenly you find yourself 2-3 months later screaming at your partner because they put a dirty dish in the sink, you know.
Exactly.
And they're like, they weren't part of the whole discussion that you've been having with yourself for 3 months.
Exactly.
Going, why are they doing this? They should know better. Clearly they don't, because you haven't said anything.
So let's start at the top with the storyteller.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to start, because I think it starts setting the stage.
Yeah, and I think step one definitely is set proper expectations for your players, okay? What is your game going to be? What sort of story are you presenting?
Right, so if your players don't know that it's a fear-based survival game with gritty realism...
And you're just like, we're going to play D&D.
Right. They don't know.
Okay, they don't know, you know.
And even if you describe the scenario in dark terms, it doesn't mean they're accepting of that.
Right. You know, is it going to be open world exploration, sandbox? Are they going to expect to do a lot of the heavy lifting in doing the story, or is this going to be more of an on rails crafted experience? Are you going to be rolling on random charts for everything, a la OC? What's the term I'm looking for? OGL.
There you
go. No, not OGL.
OSR?
OSR, thank you.
It's okay.
Did I not? I knew it started with an O.
It's okay.
A la OSR, or are you going to be, you know, is it going to be a lot more of a, like I said, crafted sort of experience? Do you need to show up to every game session?
That's huge.
Or is it going to be just hey, whoever shows up plays, drop in, drop out? It's going to be run weekly and, you know, very episodic sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do players need to know and understand all the rules? Yes, you do. Do they need to, you know,
read the book?
Read the book. Yes, you do.
Should you do those things? Yes. But some games are like, hey, I'm learning the system too. Yeah. Let's learn it together. That's a great expectation start point.
Yeah, and look, obviously not everybody has the time to cram an entire rule system into their head and stuff like that. We've all got lives. We've all got, you know.
But know your character.
But you should at least know your character, you know.
Yeah.
Do they need miniatures?
Yeah.
You know, are there outside expectations of, like, are you going to be purchasing a miniature or an STL file or something like that? Are there digital assets you're going to need for, like, a character sheet? Do you need to have D&D Beyond?
Right.
You know, to run your character sheet? Are we playing on Roll20 or Foundry VTT or something like that? You know, do you need access to those things?
Exactly.
So these are all things you should set expectations with. Your players should know and understand these things going in.
And there might be some negotiations there.
Sure.
As a storyteller, you need to be flexible at that point because what you may establish may not be something that the group is comfortable with. This includes lines and veils.
Yeah.
So beyond just the preparing of the story and presenting that as an interesting thing, these other aspects come into play because while they're thinking up their characters, they need to know what is being set before them as far as the story world is concerned.
Yeah.
So
your second step, I think, here is to recognize the different play styles at your table. You want to get to know your players. Now, I mean, you and I are very fortunate in that we know all of our players as friends first. So we have these relationships built up with them. But there was still, like, a couple players I hadn't really had extensive play with. The Mad Elf, Steve, I hadn't really played with. I think I'd only run a game for Vicky once or twice. But I'd played alongside her, so I kind of had some
feelings
there,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But and actually, believe it or not, Sean, who is my partner of, you know, over a decade now. But this is the first time we've really had an opportunity to play in a role playing game together like this. So I had to learn his play style too.
And what's funny is and I've read this a lot of times, asking your player's play style doesn't work every time, because some players, if they've only ever played RPGs on PC, have an idea of what they want to be, and then once they sit at the table, all those go away.
Heck, I'm an experienced role player, and I'll tell you that happens every single time I pull out a character.
Yeah, and that is common. Sometimes the world sets the tone for what is how the player will interact with it.
Yeah, so learning your player's play style is a little bit more of a subtle approach. It's more of a kind of an observational thing. It's not, like you said, going to be solved as directly as, hey, what's your play style? Oh, I'm a role play heavy narrative player. Okay, cool, good talk. You know, that's not going to happen. It's going to be more like, okay, I see. As I'm running my story, this person gets very excited and animated when we get into combat and has all sorts of great ideas and knows the combat mechanics of this game system intimately, but seems lost and despondent pretty much any other scene when guns aren't being drawn. I think I got a bead on what lights this person's fire, you know. And then, you know, I think the other part, too, is keeping an ongoing dialogue with them as well. You know, run ideas past them. Let them be part of the collaborative storytelling, you know, what are you guys interested in learning? Are you learning? Are you interested in learning more about the lore behind this dungeon?
Mm-hmm.
No, not really. Okay, then I won't bother writing it too deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saving me time.
Yeah.
But you understand there, what you've learned is that when they said no, it's not that they're not interested in that in your story. They're just not interested in getting into those aspects of I don't really care why this place was built. I just kind of want the treasure at the end of it. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Great. Yeah, and don't take it personally. I think that's the key to the feedback coming from these things is that these people they're already there for the game.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of don't build so much in your head of what you expected that game to be without interacting with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. So, just ask them what they like. If they say they like something, put more of that in there. If they say they don't like something, don't bother putting it in there. They're saving you work.
And I think that is where we step into this next piece,
Mm-hmm.
which I am so glad I stumbled across it, brought it up, because I think it is one of those things that is going to come back up for us, at least, as we go through. Now, we've talked about food as a metaphor and cooking as a metaphor.
Yeah.
But when I came across the term, it being a caterer of your game, and I was just like, okay, I like this a lot. Because we often talk about, doing the meat and potatoes kind of story.
Yeah, you
right?
described that as my storytelling style, and I've really adopted that as a personal credo almost.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing, but it's no different than trying to order a pizza at your table.
Mm-hmm.
Or order any meal at your table,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone has to be on board at a certain level, and then it's a catered experience at that point.
Yes.
But only so far. So, so when I ran across this, I gobbled it up initially and then passed it to you to kind of, I guess, squeegee my thoughts away that was out. So let's give credit where credit is due.
So number 3 on this is cater to those tastes. Okay, once you discover what those tastes are, you start catering to them. You are the one providing that story experience. Don't serve a dish that your players don't want to eat. Okay? And we found this great quote from Ian Gray of Story Together on BoardGameGeek.com.
But StoryTogether.com is his site too.
Yes. And he had a thread on there called Balancing Different Tabletop RPG Styles as the GM, which is very much the topic of our discussion here. And one of the subsections was called Walk the Caterer's Walk.
And it's fantastic.
He says, the answer lies in adherence to priority, and you're following through with your communication. The caterer has a plan to get people their orders as quickly and efficiently, and you, the DM/GM, forge a plan for your players to cater to their needs. You establish a priority in real time. You shine the spotlight, and you move to the next scene. You facilitate fairness amongst the players, ensuring that they all feel fed. To continue the catering analogy, ultimately you're always in communication with your players, letting them know to a reasonable extent what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, you get a card that asks what meal you would like. It doesn't have a blank spot there that says fill in what you want. It gives you options. At that point, it is up to the caterer to take those options, make sure that they work out, and then watch the floor while the meal is going out to cater to things as they're needed. Do we need more dinner rolls because they're freaking destroying them?
Yeah.
Has
nobody touched the little quiches?
Or the salad,
Yeah, okay, we don't need any more of those. Stop cooking those things.
Exactly. And that is where the idea of that constant level of bits of communication so that your players are aware, because they're going to change. Now, what we're talking about as far as giving them what they need is maybe you need to add a few combat encounters so that your combat twink understands and feels like they're being fed. Or social encounters to feed your social butterfly. Or have a few NPCs that you've given some additional thought to because one of your players is going to adopt them like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Which we have,
We have, yeah.
And the social intrigue may also be an aspect that you need to add some factions so that those players who are looking for all of the little details.
Game of houses style,
They're right on top of it.
Yeah.
But the key is you're both listening back and forth as these things get thrown out, because tastes do change.
Mm-hmm.
They alter. You may have someone who starts out as the big dumb fighter and ends up wanting to do more social.
Yeah.
Because they find enjoyment out of it in this game world.
A very, very specific example, because I had that happen at my table.
You definitely did.
When we were running it as a Dungeons & Dragons game, he was just the fighter, you know. But in that game system, you have to basically have intelligence and charisma as your dump stats, because you need strength, constitution, and dexterity to be your best scores. Having an intelligent, eloquent fighter is not a thing you can really have.
Not really.
We move over to Savage Worlds, and suddenly your charisma style abilities, your persuasion, your fame, your things like that, are entirely decoupled because it's classless.
Yeah.
And so when we made our characters again, he was like, I'd kind of like to be a little bit of a folk hero. I want to kind of have... I took the fame edge. What can we do with that?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, clearly he's telling me he wants to become a social character.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So I started slipping in things here where, like, he's a household name at the local tavern of like, hey, Rhaegar's here. And people, like, stand up and buy him a beer, And it's like Norm showing up to cheers, And he's been absolutely loving that because he asked for it. He told me he wanted it in not so many words,
Yeah, and the thing is also you were listening to other aspects. For instance, you have another player at the table who was, in the previous game, very much the shiv, I'm taking care of these problems, doing, Nightshade-style work, and then coming into Savage Worlds, decided that they could now, in this space, explore the NPCs and start connecting with other people and a little bit more of the narrative story, and now is deeply involved with one of the NPCs on a social level.
Yeah.
Right? Actually, several of the NPCs on a social level.
I love it.
And it's allowed them to have that freedom.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And if you look at them almost as two different games, even at the same table, it's discoveries that you had to make and you got the joy to see. Right, as a storyteller. So you can't just accept at the beginning that this is the way things are going to go,
right,
and dish out the same and expect the same results. You've got to stay active. You can't rest on your laurels. You've got to ask for feedback.
And I think the other aspect, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier too, is that some of this stuff is game mechanic dependent. You might have someone who's like, I love combat and I love like min-maxing my characters for combat, but we're playing that system and I hate the combat in that system.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure, you may know them as the combat twink, but like they're not going to be the combat twink if you're playing that system, you know. And the other thing too is, and I find this is for me very frequent, is you have a character idea going in, and you think you have set proper expectations for the storyteller of what your character will be, what type of story you were looking for. But then once you start engaging with the story, you find that character starts evolving in your head, and their experiences shape them in a different way. And suddenly, the character you thought was going to be, very manipulative and social, now suddenly is like a paranoid wallflower, who like, tries to manipulate things from the shadows instead of being a social butterfly, and that happens.
It does. It does. And I think in asking, one of the hardest things to be as a storyteller, and I swear this is one of the hardest things I had to learn, was being able to accept that feedback openly and with an open mind.
Yes.
Because we're taught to get defensive a little bit about criticism.
Right.
Especially something we take a lot of time to craft.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You've put your heart and soul into crafting this game. You spent countless hours making the NPCs and the scenarios and the world building, especially if it's your own proprietary world and stuff like that. It's your work of art. It's your baby, And you sit down at this table and you say, "Hey guys, what did you think?" And they go, yeah, that's a stab in the heart, But the important part is you need to ask, and you need to be open to that. Okay, you said meh. Why did you say meh? What fell flat for you? What worked for you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting out of this now that we've had this section of the story? You know, where do you see this going? Are you confused about anything? You know,
Yeah.
and you need to, when someone looks you in the eye, and you need to believe that they are going to give you an answer in good faith. You know, and I think the chances of them acting in good faith increase dramatically the more open and accepting to that feedback you are.
Yeah.
You know, you see it a lot like on the Food Network.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll go back to food again. You know, where they're standing and, you know, they're like playing Chopped or something like that, you know. And it's like, this tasted like the bottom of my shoes. Thank you, chef.
Yeah.
Why would you say thank you, chef? Does this tasted like the bottom? Because that's feedback.
Yeah. You got feedback.
Because you got feedback from someone who knows what this should taste like and that yours didn't measure up to that. What could you have done better?
Yeah. Because often their next statement is, you let this cook too long, it dried out completely.
You shouldn't have added so much lemon zest to it. It's overpowering every other flavor in here, and it's way under-seasoned.
Yeah.
Other than the lemon, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you, chef.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. You just got so much valuable feedback.
Yeah.
Now, it seems excoriating when you're standing there listening to it, but, like, no, seriously, this person just told you how to fix every single problem in your dish. Do it.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's not to say that you need to fix every single problem. The yes and kind of gets thrown around.
Oh, yeah.
And that you should, but it doesn't apply here. That's not what we're doing here. You don't have to accept what a player says and say, oh, I have to change all of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're going to have some people who are going to be like, I'd be having, oh yeah, I mean, this game is good, okay, I guess, but I'd be having a lot more fun if my paladin had a Holy Avenger. That doesn't mean that you should give them a Holy Avenger because your job is to make sure everybody's having fun. Like, that's not how any of this works. On the other hand, read between the lines a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure, this person may have looked you in the eye and said, I want a Holy Avenger. What is he really saying, though? Is he saying, I'm enjoying the power fantasy aspects of my character, and that's why I'm showing up? And if I'm allowed to feel powerful, I will enjoy the game more? Okay. That is a request I can cater to. I can brew up some situations that flex your power fantasy a little bit without handing you a Holy Avenger and entirely unbalancing the entire game.
Yeah.
But I can put you in positions where you womp some ass, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's, we make it seem like the feedback might be something that's specific, but a lot of times it can be very subtle in the way that communication comes across, where you have to kind of read between the lines and be open for that feedback to come in, regardless of what your vision was. I can remember a number of times where I would ask for feedback from you guys in my long-standing D&D game, and the thing is that I had to listen to find out that you guys just weren't enjoying combat anymore.
Yeah.
I had to hear you say, this took so long and felt like it didn't, you know, like we didn't get anywhere. You know, or I really like that you handled this combat like a dramatic situation. It still felt weird.
Yeah.
You know,
the less we engaged with Dungeons and Dragons combat, the happier we were.
Which led me to the fact that I needed to start making adventure scenarios that were tighter, that could let you guys play with your character's awesome stats and abilities, like your fight with Bulgrin.
Yeah.
That gave you a very pinpoint. It was only 2 of you and a couple of people and 1 strong foe, so it was very narrow, but it lets you enjoy that power fantasy moment when you wanted it.
And you knew Ravana was a power fantasy character for me.
Whereas,
so you put me in a situation where my arch nemesis was in front of me and an easy target.
Yeah.
And you didn't make it easy on me from a numerical standpoint, but I had some pretty darn good rolls, and I made some smart moves, and I had backup from another player, so...
Whereas the adventure, where you guys had to get a bunch of stuff, I let it up to a point where you guys could do a creative ending of your choice.
Yeah.
That didn't necessarily involve heavy combat. You know, you guys were able to work through the scenario and let everybody work together to create the solution.
Yeah.
And in that, it didn't matter that it didn't quite fit exact D&D mechanics to a T. It meant that you guys could explore your assets and abilities in a narrative sense. So sometimes we have to fold a little bit as a storyteller in a new direction while listening.
Yeah.
And try things that may not be successful.
Sure.
And I think that's the best you can do as a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we are not letting the players off the hook.
No. Players, you are the other half of this discussion, and I really say half.
Yep.
Like, this is an equal burden.
Speaking of which,
episode 120, The Player's Burden.
please go back and listen to it.
Please go back and listen to that if you want to understand a little bit more about the player's responsibilities.
I'm going to say this. If you are new to our podcast, and you are new to gaming, or you've been gaming for 30 years, go listen to episode 120 and take it to heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called The Player's Burden. I don't remember what date that was, but
I can look it back up, but it was a while back.
about 2.5 years ago, because it was about half of our current episode.
Correct.
So
it's good that we're coming back around.
Yeah. Now that talks a little bit more about like social etiquette at the table and stuff like that. So it's going to fill in a lot of the blanks that we're
going to glaze over real fast.
We're not discussing. So beginning this part of the player's responsibility, we are going to glaze over a lot of that because we're assuming everyone is coming to the table with the expectation of friendship and collaboration. Okay, we're not going to talk about interpersonal conflicts of people being mean or disrespectful or whatever to each other at the table. I.e., Wheaton's first rule, "Don't be a dick," is in full effect. Now,
funny enough, midway through us working on this show and pulling stuff together in the show sheet today, we literally got a Discord message during this part of our discussion.
Yeah, Kilkey from our Discord says, "I've lost count of all the GMs that listed 'Don't be a dick' as their one rule, as if that was the pinnacle of group management. It's not, since any conflict resolution will become a game of find the dick, and no one wants to be the dick, least of all, the dicks."
And it's so accurate. It's so accurate.
Absolutely perfect.
So just don't do that.
To wit, all villains are the heroes of their own story.
That is true. That is true. And you never notice that you're the dick.
Yes.
So, but we're assuming we're all friends. We're going to get along. Everyone has each other's best interest at the table in mind and wants to have fun.
Exactly.
That's where we're sitting.
Likewise assume that anyone not meshing with the group for whatever reason isn't doing it in bad faith.
They're just trying to have fun with the group.
I.e., the power gamers and murder hobos are not trying to ruin anyone's fun. They're just playing a game and having fun with it and not realizing the others are not meshing with that.
And as a simple point, talk to them about it. Don't let it linger. Ask the question.
And solve in-game problems in-game, out-of-game problems out of game.
There you go.
Do not try to punish your murder hobo player who is not meshing with the group with in-game punishments. Talk to them as a person.
Correct.
Yes.
That being said, the player's responsibility is they must also buy into the game that is being presented, or at least be an active participant in crafting what the experience should be. The storyteller is not a trained monkey. They are not your personal chef at home where you can just have whatever put before you. They are not there to entertain you on a personal level. You are there to try and have fun, to be entertained, and also to be entertaining.
Yes.
They are as much of a player at the table as you are.
I think that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people miss, is that there kind of is an obligation to try to be entertaining for other people. Add to the collective fun.
Correct.
Yep. Roll up your sleeves, get a little involved. I know a lot of new players can seem very intimidated, and I understand. So don't get me wrong. If you're a new player who's oh, I feel too anxious to really do a funny voice or be the star of a scene or something like that, I get it. I'm not saying that people with social anxiety are bad people or bad players, but if you're capable, whatever you're capable of adding to the collective fun, do it. It's a collaborative storytelling experience.
Yep.
You should try. And honestly, you'd be surprised. We've actually had a past episode about storytelling as therapy, or get RP games as therapy, and So even if you are someone who does have social anxiety and stuff like that, and you do feel, like you can't get involved because, you're timid about it. You'd be surprised that, like, when you're in an imaginary space, like, you have that degree of separation. It's not you being outgoing. It's Ceridwen Moonshadow, the elven archer, who's being outgoing.
Yep.
And she's a star.
Yeah.
She can get out there and do those things. You don't have to.
Yep.
You can go right back to being a socially anxious introvert afterwards.
Exactly.
But if you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, that can be a great way of showing yourself that maybe it's not so bad. It's not so scary,
Yeah, we're going to get to more of that next month, but I'm going to leave it right there.
Yeah.
So that being said, and accepting the buy-in, I also found this quote by Darren G. Miller, and it was on nworld.org on a thread there, and that was, "My number one rule now is, if the players do not buy into the basic philosophy of the running the game that the DM holds, the game will fail." And that's just that the game belongs to everyone at the table, especially the DM. It's easier for them to find a new group that suits their style than for everyone else at the table to regain their sanity and enjoyment after the game implodes. So if you're dead set on running a survival, hard, realistic game, and your players literally for the first 2 sessions are doing nothing but narrative and NPC discovery and sweet talking, and they want to go that route of it, right? And you're not having it, don't run it. Walk away before you try and force it down their throats.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna. Or you're just going to be disappointed, and they're going to be just as disappointed. And some players at the table are not going to mesh.
Yeah.
It's just not... It happens at every table.
It's fine. That is okay. I think we all have a little bit of a... it's like a nightmare scenario. Like, what if I have to kick a player out of my game? Well,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of fail safes in place before it comes to that. But, yeah, sometimes players don't mesh at your tables. I've left games before. I've uninvited players before. And you know what? The world continued to turn, and nobody died.
Yeah.
It was actually okay. So, yeah, I think it's okay to recognize this, that a player may be ill-suited to the story being told. Again, Wheaton's first rule is in effect. We are assuming people are cool on a personal level, and that the problem is not, you were a dick to my wife, please leave.
It was, they're just a murder hobo.
They're just not telling the same story that anyone else is, know?
They want to be a lone wolf.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to acknowledge that they're not, that they're ill-suited for the story being told, the game is being played, or even the group that they're playing with,
Yeah.
And I think if their expectations are different from that of the rest of the group, it's not an indictment of them as a person.
No, nor the storyteller.
You can ask them to adjust their expectations, or to leave the table if it's too incompatible. That I think Star Trek says it best. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. This doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean you're a bad person.
No, you
can still hang out and play Monster Hunter tomorrow night. It's fine. You just weren't meant to play that very specific game together.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I think it is very much of the fact that if you're all going out to dinner, and there's getting 6 people to agree on dinner is hard enough. But if everybody's like, hey, let's go grab some Chinese, and 5 of the people are like, yeah, I'm good with that. I can get something there and blah, blah, blah. And somebody literally is just like, I want Mexican. Can we just go to some place that has Chinese and Mexican? And the group's like, no, because the Chinese is going to be terrible at a place that has that.
Or you're just not going to be able to get it.
Right.
They're not going to provide General Tso's chicken
when
at
you
the
walk
Mexican restaurant.
Right, exactly. Or, vice versa. So the point is that, maybe that's not going to work, and your expectations have to be set that way.
Yeah. So sitting in a Mexican restaurant, being upset that they're not serving you General Tso's chicken is...
on you.
Is on you.
Yeah.
That's not at all on the chef,
No.
So... It's just no matter how much you complain to the chef, they're not going to make you General Tso's chicken. They will ask you what type of burrito you want, you know.
Knox says, so many food analogies. Thank God I've already eaten. Same here. We were literally writing this show sheet, and I'm like, oh my God, so much food. So much food.
I'm not going to apologize. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point in the set, how was it said? I'm not going to apologize for anything except my tone.
Yeah, I'm a swiftly aging Polish woman, so I'm getting close to Polish grandma age.
Okay.
So you just skin, you eat. I make you food, you eat.
Yes.
But I already had dinner, Grandma. No, you eat. Here, I make you sandwich.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have some Discord questions that are quite good.
Yeah. All right.
All right, some of these we may have already answered. I really haven't kept track.
He says, I do not ask for an apology. We can always talk food.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Nevim asks, how do you help someone new at the table be comfortable? Pillows, blankets sometimes, maybe a whoopee.
Yeah. Warm cup of coffee or tea.
Yeah, depends on what they like.
Pat on the head.
But I think that's the key, is set what the situation is for them. I think the best thing you can always do for a player is let them know what's expected at the table and how the game is going to go. Because if they don't have a clear example, like if they've never ever had pizza in their life, and you're saying, hey, we're ordering pizza, and they're like, do I need special utensils? They may not ask that question.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
When the pizza comes and some people are eating it backwards and some people are eating it from the point and other people are using a knife and fork, they're confused as hell.
We're in Detroit. Someone has poured ranch on their pizza.
100%. That has happened. Regardless of what the toppings are, regardless. But the point is that the best you can do is help them by framing it for them.
I think, yeah, it's good to set expectations so that things aren't such a shock to them. But I think it's very careful. You have to carefully set those expectations for them so that they don't think that there is so they don't get culture shock, I guess. You know?
Correct.
You don't want them to think that, like, they're a newbie to a very established and rigid social structure that has a certain way it has to go, that is a completely alien culture to them, and make them feel alienated before they ever get there.
AKA, hey, I'm looking to play some D&D with my friends, or play with you and your friends for D&D. Well, is there anything I need to know? Just watch some Critical Role. Do not do not do that. You may love Critical Role, but that is intimidating as hell.
Yeah, of like, oh, okay, so everybody's a professional voice actor. Cool.
And I have to be socially ready?
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I can't do that. Yeah. Sorry. Hard no. Hard pass.
I think the other major thing that I do to make new players feel comfortable is yes-anding them super hard. Because I think one of the big things that, like, new players feel weird about is, like, am I doing this right? They're looking for that validation of, like, I'm putting myself out there, and this is a little low-key embarrassing because I'm a 40-year-old person playing make-believe, you know? Can I, it's a little awkward, but you all look like you're having fun, and it looks like fun, so I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do for that person is never, ever, ever make them feel like a fool.
Yeah. I saw a recommendation and I kind of liked it. And that was someone said, for new people, treat it like a new person at karaoke. Give them a soft pitch to start with. What songs do you know by heart?
Yeah.
That everyone else will sing with them.
Yeah.
So in the case of a table, give them a character to play at first. Don't make them make a whole character from cold cloth.
Hand them Sweet Caroline so that everybody at the table goes bum, bum, bum at the appropriate place and they feel like a rock god.
Yeah, like just literally hand them a character that they can look at and say, oh, I need to be this person that I already know. Like, if I was going to do an adventure story and someone had never played adventure before, I'd be like, what movies do you know that are like an adventure-like story that are on this list? I'd be like, oh, I like The Mummy. Okay. So would you like to be a, I don't know, female explorer who's only ever lived in a museum but knows a lot of things about mummy culture and is kind but has a mean right hook? Yes. Okie dokie. You
Okie dokie.
are her.
You put your dots here, you put your dots here, and you put a 1 right there.
If
Okay,
you don't
good.
like this in literally 2 sessions, new character.
New character, we'll change it.
We're
We'll
going to
rearrange
start right here. There's nothing you can do wrong with this character.
Yeah.
And literally soft pitch them right into it.
Take that pressure off of them and just let them have some fun with it.
The second question...
Well, hold on a second. Knox actually asked kind of a follow-up question in the live chat. He says, how can you have fun if you're fighting with yourself about whether you're selling it or not?
Okay, as a player.
As a player. I'm going to put this as bluntly as I can. Lighten up. It's a game.
Yeah.
Like, you're not... Your job is not on the line. You are not a professional actor.
Not in the least.
You will work in this town again.
Yes.
Your agent is not on the phone.
Nope.
And
there is no money to be shown.
Nobody else is putting that pressure on you except for you.
Correct.
So just take a deep breath and realize that we're all goofballs doing funny voices while we play with dice and little plastic men.
Yep.
At a table.
Yep. Deep breath. Deep breath.
Yeah.
Have fun.
It ain't that deep.
Sing some Sweet Caroline. It's great.
You don't have to sell crap.
I mean, that was kind of a hypothetical. But it's the truth.
But it was a serious question, and we're going to answer it because you asked it in the live chat.
Okay.
So,
how do you help others to include the newcomer? Sing Sweet Caroline with them.
Sing Sweet Caroline with them and go bum, bum, bum at the appropriate place and make them feel like a rock god.
Yeah, basically just when they succeed and they feel like they're succeeding, not by the dice.
Yes.
But by the player.
By their choices.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna run up to the orc, and okay, maybe that was a tactical mistake because that orc is about to whoop their ass. But
what are you gonna do?
Maybe go, oh, dude's all in. All right, well, I'm gonna rush up there with him.
Right. Just sell it. Sell it with them.
Exactly. Roll into it. Get behind them. Back their play a little bit, and let them engage in their. I think probably the quickest way is to cater to their power fantasy.
If that's what they're doing.
Once they come out of their shell and put themselves out there, you have to back that play.
I agree.
All right. Kilky asks, what is your motto for keeping up group harmony?
We have said this since the beginning of our show.
Oh, God, what did we say?
Communication.
Yeah.
Communication.
Oh, yeah, communication is key.
Everyone at the table needs to communicate, and that is the hardest thing, is to get communication in a comfortable, accepting way, and to make sure it happens between the players and between the players and the storyteller, so that everybody, both during the game as well as during feedback, are communicating about it. It is the thing that saves every relationship.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hard agree. I also have another motto.
That's it. I'm out.
All right, bye.
Go ahead.
No, my other motto, and this is because this is the one thing I can do. Communication's a group effort.
It is.
But the one thing I can make sure I am doing as the storyteller is making sure that I am a good caterer. That I'm recognizing, actively listening and recognizing the orders at my table, what particular style of story they want served up for them, and make sure that I'm cooking the best food that I can for them for those particular tastes, and making sure that I am serving everyone at least once per session.
There you go.
A little bit. Nobody goes home hungry.
Yep. You can't always do it every time.
But I can try.
But you can try.
And
you can make notes to do it the next time.
Exactly. Yeah. If I don't, and like my last game session, I didn't.
No.
I didn't do a great job of it at all, and that was a key piece of feedback I got. But and I asked what could I do, and you guys said immediately you're like, take turns around the table. And I was like, why didn't I do that? Why did I just let people just run roughshod all over the scene, which allowed other people to be backseated?
Because it happens.
Because I was just too into the scene, just like you guys were, and I just didn't notice, know? But I can take that. But I can take that feedback in good Yeah. How involved? Very involved.
Yes.
But I can take that feedback.
Yep.
And I
make
can
a little sticky note for yourself.
Make a little sticky note for myself. Go around the damn table this time. Okay.
All right. JGen X. What does healthy gaming group look like?
It's approximately 1.6 meters in height.
As much as I'd like to point to something directly, I'm going to say it's really hard. Because you can't, there's no good example of feedback that I can give that's visible. I would say that a healthy gaming group is one that that takes the time to that everyone is an active listener when the question at the opening of the game is, how is everyone doing? And it's not just the storyteller listening there. It's everybody at the table. That during the game, if there are struggles, there are people taking the time to step back and listen and help those people enjoy the game. And that at the end, you aren't just saying, yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
What about it? It was fun. That's not helpful for anyone at the table.
Right.
At the same time, when you do communicate troubles, that you're doing it with the best intentions toward everyone. You're not saying that someone was a problem. Because they weren't. Because you didn't say anything then.
Yeah.
It is one thing to stop a scene because there's a critical problem. It's another at the end to say, hey, Sarah, you had asked if I had a good time, and really, I did. But, 2 out of 10 really wasn't that big of a deal, but it felt like I really didn't get to do much. I think I rolled dice once. I think I got to interact in a scene maybe once. I loved the story. It was great. I got to see a lot. Not everybody gets to be in the light every time, but there was some push in a certain direction. And if that was your intention, that's great. Yeah. That's great. But that feedback right there, I didn't knock on another player who was in the limelight.
Right.
I didn't immediately tear down my storyteller to saying, hey, you wrote the story for them. Where's my story?
Yeah.
I have to accept my responsibility that during that scene I wasn't like, hand up, hey, I'm over here. Okay, that's on me, right? So that is the best you can do in a good group. That is what I would see a best group. And again, all of that is communication. All of that is the storyteller taking the time to listen and accept the feedback, and just being active when it counts.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that's a extraordinarily complete answer. I agree with literally every word you said. My simple version of this answer is, at the end of your game, when you say, did everyone have fun? You get universal yeses. And when you ask for feedback, some people have yeah, no, I mean, maybe the combat session could have gone a little quicker, but really nothing. When that's the strongest feedback you get at the end of your game, your group is in a good zone.
Yeah.
Your people aren't bringing up major gripes with you and stuff like that. You're not having a lot of interpersonal. When people just show up, they have fun and they leave. That's a good gaming group.
The other one that gets me is that moment when you recognize as the GM, you have that one brief second where you look at the clock and you realize you're going to go over your time, but everybody is invested.
Everybody's leaning in, and
they're all wanting to push. And you ask that question, do you guys want to keep going? And they're all like, yeah. And you know that you need to stop.
Yeah.
In your mind's heart, in heart, you know this is the time to stop. That is good. Because you have them, you're with them, you need to keep going because you feel it, but that burnout will hit.
Yeah.
And you're like, we will pick this up next session. And they're all like, oh!
if we continue into the combat section, y'all are going to be hangry in an hour. And that's not going to be good for anybody.
No. And so that's it. As far as tips for aspiring GMs on managing your gaming group, I'm going to check you on the word managing. Because we don't manage our group. It is a group effort.
Yeah. We're all adults at the table.
Yeah.
And kind of needs to be a group effort, yeah.
But earlier we talked about some of your responsibilities as a storyteller, and being an active listener and being able to gracefully accept feedback, I think are one of the two biggest things that you need to do.
I think probably, the real answer to this question is, we already kind of answered the storyteller's side of the responsibilities, but we do want to, especially for aspiring GMs, as your question asks, nip it in the bud that we are not managing the group.
No.
We are not babysitters. We are not coordinators. We're already running the damn game, which is a lot to be doing, to begin with. But then when you have to work through scheduling problems and interpersonal problems and blah, blah, just ask people to be adults, divvy up responsibilities.
Ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight up.
Do you want to dip into that one from the live chat real quick, or do you want to finish up with Sci-Fi Tough Guy here?
Let's do Sci-Fi Tough Guy, and then we'll tip that last one.
All right, cool. So Sci-Fi Tough Guy asks, how much group Discord is not the application, but the actual Discord, as in disagreement. How much group Discord is healthy, and how much is detrimental?
When you feel that you have to look at your watch.
So, there are players at my table, that I use as my barometer for the Discord at the table.
I'm going to sit back for a second here.
At any point where I feel like maybe the Discord has gone on a little too long, I look at Steve and I look at Vicky. Mm-hmm. And if they are distracted, if they are rolling their eyes, if they are leaning back from the table and kind of giving me exasperated glances of like, wow, this has gone on then it is too much.
Yep.
They are my canaries in my coal mine.
Yeah. Because sometimes your players who are in the Discord don't know time has passed.
Yeah, they're just having a good time thinking that they're doing a planning session, and it's just been going on.
Or having a between-character argument, or working through something, and nobody else notices that it's happening. Or they don't notice it's happening, whereas everyone else, the time is ticking by every second. Yeah. It feels like watching one of the worst commercials ever.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that.
So yeah, I would say, I mean, how much is healthy and how much is detrimental? It becomes detrimental the moment somebody at your table stops having fun with it.
Yep. Step it away. Yep.
That's it. And you just got to keep a careful eye on body language, expressions, because people won't usually say anything.
Yeah, and I think that leads into the second question, was how does one tell where the line is and when it's been crossed? And the answer is, it's not the people in the Discord. It's the rest of the tables witnessing that Discord.
Yes. And honestly, if you are asking the question of yourself of, has this gone too far?
It has.
Then it probably has.
Yep.
It's probably time, like, and like, I'll do this occasion where I'll be like, okay, look, hold on, guys. Okay. We've got a lot of good ideas out there of what we think should happen. Clearly, you feel very strongly about your particular plans. Mm-hmm. Let's put this... I'm going to take control of the situation here, because I feel like you could go on for hours about this. Mm-hmm. Let's just put it up to a vote. Everybody who wants to do character A's plan, raise your hand. Everybody who wants to do character B's plan, raise your hand. Everybody who thinks both of those plans are BS and didn't get the chance to speak up now. Okay. I saw 3 hands for character A's plan, 2 hands for character B's plan, and nobody said that they had an alternative plan. We're going with character A's plan. Character A, can you restate your plan very clearly for the rest of the group so they know what the next scene will be?
And how we'll start.
Yep.
I love it. Yep. All right, we do have a Discord question here.
Yeah, so Knox in the Box asks, this is kind of a follow-up to me saying going around the table to give everybody a bit of attention. Is it more appropriate for the GM to go around the table, or is there a responsibility for the players to fight for their own needs and spotlight? Or is that just a bunch of lead singers singing over each other? I think it's a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. I think you should speak up if you have something to say. Get involved. I think a proactive player is better than a reactive player, in the sense that if you want to feel involved with the story, you should get involved. That's what you're there for. You're an active participant in the story.
If you feel that you're being stepped over, make sure in your feedback at the end, your storyteller knows that.
Yes.
So that they can then tell you, okay, maybe I need your hand up because I didn't hear you.
Right.
Or maybe I need to go around the table. Or maybe whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But I think there again, it's keeping an eye on your players, reading body language, things like that. Mm-hmm. I think going around the table has worked out for me more often than just letting things go free form, because there are characters players at my table who will shrink to the back if not actively engaged.
Yep.
And I think when you do actively engage them, you're going to be surprised what they have to add to the scene.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I would say it's probably better to go around.
Yeah. If you're worried, go around.
But players should be encouraged to jump in where they need to.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
All right.
Next week is our second Wednesday of the month. It is our System Spotlight.
System Spotlight time again, guys. And we're talking about Wonder Home. This is a system that I've heard name dropped a bunch of times. I actually believe I have a copy of it. I haven't cracked it open. I don't know anything about it.
Isn't that awesome?
But it's a slice of life RPG where players explore the characters versus the world around them through conversations and moves. So yeah, we're gonna kind of see what this. I think it's been kind of described as like a real chill system and a real chill like storytelling experience.
Yeah, when we get into it more, there's definitely some things that are likened to it. So it'll be a good framing for those games as well, and we'll reference that. But yeah, it's definitely more narrative and definitely more player driven.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. So. Looking forward to doing that.
So we will we'll explore that system next week. Until then, though, you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us on our Discord. We'd love to hear from you. Toss us some questions to answer on the air, to discuss your campaign with the great storytellers that are on there, things like that. You can find that link on our Twitter as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com.
We'd like to thank our Patreon members who assist us every single month, especially our named members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, Arcane Asylum, Veteran, Hulavu, Sam, Sean, and Sparkle Motion. We truly appreciate all your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find them on Instagram or Patreon as Arcane Anthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on YouTube Music. And our outro music, which you're hearing right now, is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
And a big shout out, as always, to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving and supporting us. All of our friends who've sat with us at our tables over these years to give these great stories to share with you. And you, every single one of our listeners. We love you guys so much.
Love you guys.
Good night.
Good night.